On June 18, 2023, a submersible vanished on a dive to the Titanic. So, what really happened?
For 4 days, the world watched, hoping for a rescue. But the truth was way quicker and far more brutal.
So the big question is, why? Why did they never return? I mean, this question absolutely captivated the entire world, right? The trip down was only supposed to take a couple of hours, and then they just vanished. Let's walk through exactly what happened.
All right, let's set the scene. We're going back to June 18, 2023. Let's look at the timeline of how this 2-hour trip down spiraled into a massive international incident.
Okay, so at 8 in the morning, the Titan starts its journey down. But look at this. By 9:45 a.m., not even 2 hours in, all communication is lost. Silence. Now, here's something crucial. The sub was supposed to be back up by 4:30 p.m., but the Coast Guard, they weren't even officially told anything was wrong until after 7 p.m. That's a huge gap. A really critical window of time just disappeared before a search could even get started.
And what happened next? Well, it turned into this massive global media event, this frantic race against time. But the whole thing was built on one single, very important, and as we're about to find out, completely wrong assumption.
And that assumption was all about this number, 96. 96 hours. That was the magic number, the estimated amount of oxygen they had left. And because of that single number, the whole world saw this as a desperate survival story playing out in real time.
So this huge search operation kicks off. You had aircraft, ships, these incredible deep-sea robots, all mobilized. The story was just so simple and so terrifying, wasn't it? 5 people trapped in something the size of a minivan in the total freezing darkness with a clock ticking down on their air supply. And they were looking for them in an area bigger than some countries. Just imagine.
And then, just when things were looking grim, a potential breakthrough, a sign of life, or at least that's what it seemed like. Yeah, a Canadian plane's sonar equipment started picking up these rhythmic, banging noises. They were happening every 30 minutes, and everyone, thought, this is it. This has to be the crew, alive, banging on the hull, trying to signal for help from the deep.
But then, on June 22nd, one of those remotely operated vehicles, an ROV, finally made it down to the seabed. And that entire hopeful story, the one the whole world was clinging to, it was just shattered, instantly.
Because the brutal truth was, there was no one to rescue. The whole 4-day search, that ticking oxygen clock, the hope from those banging sounds, it was all based on a false premise. The crew was already gone. They had been gone long before the first rescue ship even left the harbor.
So what happened? The Titan didn't get lost, it wasn't stuck on the bottom, it suffered what's called a catastrophic implosion. You have to understand, the water pressure down there is just immense. We're talking about 400 times the pressure we feel up here on the surface. The second that hull failed, the entire vessel was just crushed inward on itself with a force that's almost impossible to comprehend. And how fast did this happen? About 1 millisecond. Let me put that into perspective for you. It takes your brain about 100 milliseconds to even process the sensation of pain. 100. The implosion took 1. They were gone before their nervous systems even had a chance to send a signal that something was wrong. It was instantaneous.
So, the question becomes, how on earth did this happen? And the thing is, this wasn't some random freak accident. No, this was the direct result of some very deliberate design choices and a company culture that just repeatedly ignored really clear warnings that something catastrophic could happen.
You know, this quote from Stockton Rush, he was the CEO of OceanGate, and he was actually piloting the sub, it says it all. At some point, safety is just pure waste. I've broken some rules to make this. That really gives you a window into the mindset here, doesn't it? He saw safety rules not as, essential, but as something that just got in the way of innovation.
And this chart really lays out just how different the Titan was from, well, pretty much every other deep-sea sub. Let's just focus on the most important part, the hull. Down that deep, the pressure is coming at you from every single direction. It's relentless. That's why pretty much all certified subs are spheres. It's the perfect shape to distribute that pressure evenly. And they're made of solid titanium or steel. But the Titan, it was a cylinder. That shape automatically creates weak points. And the material? Carbon fiber. Now, carbon fiber is strong, sure, but it's also brittle and really not proven for the kind of repeated stress of these dives. See, titanium might bend and give you a warning. Carbon fiber can just snap, instantly and completely. And on top of all that, OceanGate flat out refused to get the submersible certified by any outside agency, which is standard practice. It was a total outlier.
And again, people saw this coming. This wasn't a surprise. Way back in 2018, the company's own director of marine operations wrote a report voicing huge safety concerns about the hull. What happened to him? He got fired. Then you had a group of more than 30 of the top experts in the field, explorers, scientists, send a letter to the CEO warning of a potential catastrophic disaster if he didn't get the sub properly certified. The alarms were blaring, they were on the record, and they were just completely ignored.
You know, when you step back and look at the whole story, it's pretty hard to miss the tragic irony here. The parallel between the Titan and the very shipwreck it was going to see. Think about it. The Titanic was called unsinkable, right? It was this symbol of being so overconfident in your technology that you completely disregard the raw power of nature. And here we are, over a century later, and the Titan was born from a very similar idea, that innovation is so important, it lets you break the rules of safety, even the rules of physics. They're both just these incredibly sad, cautionary tales about hubris.
So the legacy of the Titan really leaves us with this one big question, doesn't it? As we see more and more private companies pushing into the most extreme places you can imagine on this planet and even off it, this story is a pretty chilling reminder that there's a very fine line between being a bold innovator and just being recklessly arrogant.